We ready? All right. We don't need to test? I don't need to say I'm allergic to capitalism? No? Okay. All right. Good. All right. We've done this before. All right. Greetings, everybody. How's everybody doing? Y'all all right? Okay. So I'll let Tighearnan introduce themselves first, since I'm going to be doing most of this section, and then Tighearnan is going to do the bulk of the second section at 3:30?
3:30.
Yes.
3.
Okay. So go ahead.
Hi, I'm Tighearnan. I go by they, them. I've been a community organizer for the last 12, 13 years in Portland. I've been working with ROP just under a decade, doing de-escalation, safety, and security for when they do tours all over rural Oregon. And it's been a pleasure and honor to do that for such an alliance and organization that creates such good, strong community, and really gives me a lot of confidence for our future. Even though things are, beyond on fire, it's a strong community that's really going to get us through this. And also, I've been working with Ahjamu for around a decade or so, something like that. Yeah. And so really appreciate you having me here, and excited to talk more about community defense.
Yes, indeed. All right.
Thank you.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Ahjamu Umi, and I am an organizer for the All African People's Revolutionary Party. And that is how I'm here. Someone asked earlier, what security company do you work for? And I'm like, I would never work for no company. Okay, I'm here for movement work. And I got started working with ROP about 12 years ago. I don't know how many of you know a sister by the name of Walida Amarisha in Portland, and she did a presentation called Why There Are No Black People in Oregon, and ROP would sponsor that in various areas across Oregon, and I lived in Oregon at that time. And so she had gone and did a presentation in Southern Oregon somewhere, and some neo-Nazis threatened her. And she told me about that. So I said, well, you're not going again. I'm going with you wherever you go. And she said, well, let's see if we can formalize it. And so she introduced me to the ROP staff. We talked it out, and it became a thing that I did regularly. And then we expanded that. A bunch of us started getting involved, and that really got consolidated with the Beyond Burns tour, which was interesting in 2016?
I think so.
Yeah, and that night, just to give you an idea of the intensity, that election night, 2016, whatever date it was, we were at the house of Jessica Campbell, who was the executive director of Rural Organizing Project at the time, because she had gotten so many threats from all these people. And we said, well, we coming to you're gonna have house guests. We come in there. And I know you were somewhere on the property, but I was on the driveway with my vehicle, and we had talked it through, and we were like, any of these people come here up this driveway, they're gonna have a bad night. That's all we could say. And we stayed up all night, and we ended up staying there several days because the threats kept coming in. And so we've just continued to do that work. And the most significant part of that work, I think, is we've worked the last few years to help ROP develop its own internal security structure. So that's what we're going to talk a lot about today, because security is a collective thing. Now, I don't know about you all, because I don't know you, but I feel like we are at threat right now. We are gravely in danger. And what I'm talking about is, if you're African like me, you're indigenous, Latino, you're a woman, you're LGBTQ, you're in danger in this society. You are not safe in this society. And if you disagree with that, I have a good therapist I can recommend for you, okay? You are at danger. And even if you're working class white, white person, you're in danger in this society. So the solution, in our humble view, will come from us organizing to defend ourselves. I'm sorry if you believe that 911 is an effective defense program. I don't believe that at all. I grew up in housing projects in San Francisco. The police have never been my friend, okay? I don't have anything against them. They can live and exist, just not in my life, okay? Because I don't negotiate with terrorists, I'm sorry. So I don't do that. So I know that the safety and security I've always had has been through the organizing and the political work and working with people, and do that now all the time. I live in California. I left Oregon in 2017 to move back to California and continue to do this work on a broad scale. I travel all over the world doing this work and have worked with all types of folks. From Canada to the Caribbean. I'm in Africa constantly because my political party is based in Africa, and that's our work. So we do this work all the time, all over the world, and we'll continue as long as we have breath. And so what we want to do today in this session with you all is talk about a couple of things. One, how do you create an effective security plan for yourselves, right? And how you do that, what the steps are to do that, because you should do that. And I know, like, a lot of times, like, this is a capitalist society. And one of the main attributes of capitalism is individualism. So we're all trained to see the world through and validate experiences based on our individual perception of the world. And that's okay. But the problem with that is a lot of times it's difficult for people to accept things until they happen to them, right? And this safety and security question is a great example of that. I grew up around violence all the time. I know that I live in a society where people will hurt you for no reason at all. I know that. But if you haven't experienced that, you may not know that, right? So unfortunately, we live in a time now where I think more and more people will come to understand that. And we believe that if calling 911 is your best response to that, that is not going to work out for most of us. So some of you, this might not be for you, because you might be Blue Lives Matter. I don't know. You might, and if that's you, you're not going to like the next few minutes. Okay. But if you're somebody that understands what I'm talking about right now, then this would be very useful for you. Okay, so we'll get started just by simply talking about the key elements of proper collective security. And by what do we mean when we say collective? What does that mean? All of us, right? I don't care what nationality you are, what gender, all of us have the responsibility to protect each other. Do y'all believe that? Yes. Do y'all, because they always hear this, well, I don't want to get involved in that. That's not my business. Nonsense. You are only as safe as the people around you. That's why I will forever, like I have to talk to my folks all the time because I live in Sacramento, there'll be drag shows and we show up. The reason why we show up is because the Proud Boys show up and we want to give them the proper reception that they deserve, okay? So we show up and people are like, well, why are you going there? I'm like, because if that community is not safe, I don't know how the hell you think you're safe, right? The Proud Boys are a white supremacist, or like, what is wrong with you? Like, that is a part of what we have to do. We have to see all of that as our responsibility, everyone as our responsibility. So we will continue to do that. So that's what we mean by collective. It's all of us collectively working together to build safety in communities, right? Does that sound like a good idea? Oh, yeah. All right, so y'all in the right place then. We good. All right, so let's talk about what that looks like. The first thing is that this approach to collective security, again, we are not police. We are not trying to be police. We don't want to be police. If you want to be that police, then that's you, but that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about, and I say that because, you know, undercover police are everywhere. So, you know, if that's you, go back and tell them that we said here that we're not advancing that model today. What we're advancing is community. So the first thing is that we have to work on developing a model of a spirit of community. We've got to beat back individualism and recognize that we are responsible for each other, right? That's what that means. And so it means that we have to ask ourselves, why are we here for this work? Why are you here this weekend? What are you here to do? What will you do when you leave here, and why will you do it? That's an important question. These are important questions. I can tell you my answer, but everybody, you have to have your own answer. My answer is I drove 11 hours to get here because I know that the work that ROP does is essential. And even though I don't live in Oregon anymore, I'm going to continue to support that work. Why? Because this is a backward cesspool society. I'm sorry if that offends you. That's your problem. You cannot refute it. It's a backward cesspool society, the most primitive place on the planet Earth. And I've traveled to about 30 countries. So I can say that, right? I've lived in different countries multiple times, right? This is the most backward place in the world. And I know that because of that, it's the most unsafe country in the world. You know, there are 100 guns for every person in this country. And I'm not anti-gun. That's not my, he's talking against the Second Amendment. No, he isn't. Even though the Second Amendment is rooted in white supremacy. You know that, right? Yeah, but that's not what I'm doing. What I'm saying is that it's a backward, primitive society. So what we have to do is ask ourselves why we do this work. And the reason why I say ROP is so important is because ROP, you all are doing the work to organize primarily white communities. And that work I don't see happening anywhere else. And that is the work that needs to be done. That's what needs to be done. Because my whole life, the work that I've done, the biggest group that confronts the work that I'm doing is working class white people. And I'm trying to tell them, like, you are not. I told a guy Thursday, he's like, I'm like, you're jealous. He's told me I'm jealous of him. And I'm like, dude, I'm better looking than you. I'm smarter. I got a better personality. There is nothing you have that I need. I am not concerned about you. I want you to go to your communities and organize your folks so that we can build a broader movement. I don't need anything from you. I'm a Pan-Africanist. I'm working for the unity of Africa. You cannot help me with that. So I don't know why you think this conversation is centered around you. It's not. It's centered around justice, right? So that's why I value the work that ROP does, and that's why I'm here, right? Even though I have to call my wife every couple of hours to, Britt, come on back and, let them folks do what they're gonna do. Okay, I'll see you on Monday, all right? Okay, I'll be back on Monday. So why do you do this work? Like, I have a clear reason. I'm here to do this. I have a lot of experience. So I know that, like, if someone ran up here and tried to harm anyone in here, I'm throwing my body at them. Will I get hurt? Probably. I don't care, okay? Because that's the only way I can sleep at night, is by knowing that I'm doing everything I can to do what needs to be done. You have to ask yourself that question. Why are you here? You don't have to have the same answer I have. And you probably are in much better mental health if you don't have the same answer I have. But you need to have your own answer, right? For why you're here. That's very important. And then the other thing is, what is your psychological and spiritual approach to this work? Now, I'm not saying you have to be religious. I'm almost certain that if I walked into a mosque or a church or a synagogue, I would explode. So I'm not advocating that. All right. What I'm saying, I'm not because I'm doing anything wrong, but because I'm going to be disruptive. Like I've been kicked out of more faith institutions. I mean, I've been kicked out because being disruptive. So that's why I said that. So where are you at with yourself? Right? Like, how is your framing? How do you feel? Because, like, I talked to someone not long ago, and we were at a meeting to try to organize how to deal with something in the community. And this person told me, I don't even like people. And I'm like, well, why are you here? This is a meeting for people to get together to work out solutions. And you're saying you don't want to deal with people. You shouldn't be here, right? That's not healthy for the people here or you. So you got to think about that, right? You don't have to, that's not saying you have to be, believe it or not, I'm extremely introverted. I do this work, but when I'm on my own time, I'm a writer. I've written and published books. I spend time writing. I like to do that. I listen to music. I go out in the woods. That's what I love to do. If I'm around people on a social level, I don't hardly say anything. I let them, because that's just not my personality. So you have to figure that piece out in terms of where you are. Are you in a healthy place? Are you here because you want to make a contribution? Or are you here because you want someone to do something for you? Because that's not a good enough reason to be here. You got to be here doing this because you want to make a contribution to make the world better. Because if you're serious about this work, I'm going to tell you right now, the overwhelming majority of it is not going to benefit you. You're going to make a tremendous amount of sacrifices. People are going to leave you in droves. People are going to say that you're insane. And you have to be at a place where those things do not derail you. Y'all know who Cat Williams is, a comedian?
Yes.
Cat Williams said, if you got 10 haters in March, you got to figure out how to get to 15 by June. And I agree with that. I love having haters. I get tons of hate mail. And I love that because it tells me Secretary was an African revolutionary who said, if the enemy isn't doing anything against you, it's because you're not doing anything. And so if I go too long without hate mail, I get really worried. I get really concerned. I'm like, maybe I'm not going hard enough. I don't know. So you got to have that happening. You got to think about where you are. And I don't need that validation. Like, I can come in a room and there can be 5,000 people that disagree with me. That is not going to move me 1 inch, right? Because I am convinced of a number of things. One is that everybody deserves food, clothing, and shelter. Two is that every human being on the planet Earth has value. Everyone, no exceptions. Everyone has value. And that means that don't listen to these capitalist lies, these bourgeois lies. They tell you there's something wrong with you because you have an addiction. BS, okay? This country is addicted to exploitation. So if you have an addiction because you're not able to reconcile your life with that backward reality, that's not something wrong with you. Look, I'm gonna tell y'all without even knowing you, there's nothing wrong with you. The only thing wrong with you is this backward system. That's the only thing. That's what we have to correct. So you got to get that straight, because if you have that straight, there's nothing these people can say or do to you that's going to stop you. And I'm talking about, you want to match trauma stories, we can do that. I've had that my whole life. It's been nothing but trauma. But I'm telling you what I do know, that I learned at first when I was younger, the trauma was the white man's fault, right? Then it was, I don't know, something else, my parents' fault. Now I know, no, it's the system's fault. My parents did the best they could with what they had to work with. And the overwhelming majority of white people I met and worked with are doing the best they can. Some of y'all need work, but the majority are doing the best that they can. So I know now that the problem is the system. So you got to check yourself on that. And then, do you truly believe in the practicality of us having the potential to improve? What does that mean? What that means is, do you look at someone like a white supremacist, for example? Do you look at them and say, that's the enemy? I don't. I know that they hate me, but I already told you, they don't have nothing I need. I don't need them. They hate me, that's their problem. I couldn't care less. As long as they don't try to impede my progress, we don't have a problem. I told one the other day, he's like, I hate you. I'm like, well, then I'm living rent free in your head. Continue to let me do that. I don't think 1 second about you, right? So I don't care about that. But if you come and try to physically stop me or someone I love, you're going to have a problem. That's it. But you're not my enemy, because I know what you're mad at. And it's not me, because I didn't take anything from you. It's the system that did that. It's this capitalist system that made you mad. And you have to understand that and get involved and do something about it. So you got to think about that. And then make these principles the center of your life and your work, right? You know what principles are? What are principles? Yes. Guidelines? Okay. Yes.
It's what you consider first before you...
Right. So I would argue respectfully, it's much more than Principles are values that you never compromise. It's important to understand that. Like, I have principles. Africa is primary to me, right? I'm not an American. I was born here, but I'm not an American. I think American identity is synonymous with white supremacy. I don't think you can call yourself an American without perpetuating white supremacy. Matter of fact, I don't think that. I know that's true. So I would never, to me, calling me an American, African American is like calling a Jewish person a Jewish Hitler. I can't do it. That's a principle with me. I will never compromise that, ever. I could call my daughter up right now and she could tell you without me even prompting her, are you an American? And she'll give you the same speech I just gave you, because these are the values that she was raised with, right? So have your principles. Because Dr. Martin Luther King said, a person that stands for nothing will fall for everything. So if you don't have principles, you are not going to be properly positioned to continue to engage in this work. You'll do it for a little while, but you'll get out of it. I just turned 63. I'm more fired up than I ever have been. But I got a whole lot of people I started out with 40 years ago that are now trying to convert me to their church. And I'm like, you don't want me to come in there because the building's gonna catch on fire. I can't, I'm trying to save you, right? Right, let's do something different. So just think about that, and then start your events out by have some sort of way of checking in with yourself and everybody. Even if you're not doing an event, like whatever you're doing, check in with yourself. Because in this society, we're trained not to deal with our feelings. And it's destroying us, you all. It's destroying us because we don't know how to check in with ourselves about where we are in the moment. And that's the most unhealthy thing you could have happen for yourself. So you got to get in the habit of checking in with yourself. I did it this morning. How are you doing, Ahjamu? What's going on with you? What are you concerned about? Check in with yourself. 5 minutes. It'll do so much for your mental health to do that. Don't just push stuff down and keep going. People say that like it's a flex. I just keep going. No, that's not healthy. Check in and check in with other people. I'm fortunate to belong to an organization that does that prolifically. So we have a practice of that. You should develop that. And then ask the question of everyone, why we're here. Constantly ask that question. Constantly ask that question, because it'll generate productive and constructive conversation that can help us build community if we do that. Does that make sense?
Wait a minute.
All right.
Back up. Ask the question.
Oh, we can give this to you. I can give you this. This belongs to the people. So if you want it, just give me your email address. I can send you the whole thing. You don't have to take notes and do all that. So movement plan, what we're talking about, you all, is that the forces of oppression are organized, which means what? We have to be more organized. Absolutely. We can't look, these institutions in this society have perfected what they do, right? That's why it works so well, right? Oppression, you ask, this man is current, and I'm sorry, to me, whoever is U.S. president, they have the responsibility. I know a lot of you don't see it this way, but I'm the one up here right now, so I'm gonna articulate my perspective. Whoever is U.S. president, their responsibility is to uphold capitalism, white supremacy, patriarchy, and homophobia. I don't care what party they're with. I don't care who they are. I would argue the most destructive president to Africa has been Barack Obama. And I can illustrate that. So AFRICOM, you saw this clown the other day, this General Langley. He's the director of the African program, which was started under Bush's regime and proliferated, I'm sorry, English is a foreign language for me, I struggle with it. Proliferated under Barack Obama's regime. And what it is, y'all know what AFRICOM is? What is it? Anybody? It's the creation of 100 U.S. military bases in Africa. And the purpose of those military bases are to crush political repression in Africa on your dime. That's the purpose of it. And example, if you know what's going on in the Sahel right now, they're trying to assassinate President Ibrahim Traore in Burkina Faso. Have you seen any of that? That's AFRICOM, this Langley guy that's saying that Traore is stealing all the resources in Burkina Faso is the director of AFRICOM. That's the whole purpose of that. And the reason why they're doing that, I know it's not on the news. It's not on MSNBC or Fox or CNN or CIA networks. It's not on that. But this is what's happening. You should look into it. Because the reason why it's happening is that Africa is on fire, you all. You're not going to see it on those news stations, but it is on fire. People recognize that they are supplying the resources to the entire capitalist world and they have nothing. And they're sick of that, as they should be, right? The Eiffel Tower in Paris is lit up by uranium stolen from Niger. And people in Niger have no electricity, right? Who in here has had something chocolate in the last 30 days? Raise your hand if you've ate some chocolate. You know 75% of the chocolate cocoa products in this country come from Ghana. It's an extremely exploitative industry. We wouldn't have the internet if it wasn't for Congolese cobalt. The entire wealth of this backward empire is based on stealing from Africa. That is a fact. And I'm a living example of that, because the only reason why I'm standing here before you is because my ancestors were stolen from Africa. Look around. Everything in here is stolen. Everything is stolen. That's what this place is. I know, like, that sounds so militant. That's a good thing. I hope you're like, Bun, you're so militant. Thank you. I appreciate the compliment. That's a wonderful thing, because it's not about how this makes us feel. It's about whether it's correct or not, and whether we need to figure out a way to deal with it, right? Right? I mean, isn't that, who here is children, right? Are you raising your children to, like, whatever doesn't sound right to you, run another direction? Or are you raising them to do what's right in the world, right? So I'm telling you, when you do what's right, it's gonna be uncomfortable. Everything in life that's worthwhile is uncomfortable. Those of you that have delivered children, you know this. It's not a pleasant, it's uncomfortable. And it's the most important act in human existence, right? So we can't run from conflict. We have to figure out how to deal with it. So that's all this is saying. So this is a reflection of that when it says the forces of oppression are organized. So we have to be better organized. That's all that means. And a collective, not individual, security plan is essential for that, right? What are the necessary components of a security plan? Let me ask you, who has a security plan here? Who has one? Okay, good. Usually no one has one. A couple people have one, right? And I'll go through what it is, but this is what it looks like, just basic things, right? When I come up here, my wife knows if I don't check in with her by a certain time, y'all would see more Africans in Baker City than you ever thought you could imagine, okay? That's the plan. My daughter knows that. If she doesn't hear from me or my wife at a certain time, Baker City becomes Chocolate City. I'm telling you right now. That's what happens. That's our security plan, right? You want to have one, and that's what we're going to talk about, right? So collective efforts to look out for each other. Developing a check-in procedure. I'll name them, and then we'll go through what they look like, right? A check-in procedure. When you're in your organizations, your groups, if something happens, how do you make sure everybody's safe? What is your process to check in with each other? You might use Signal, you might use WhatsApp, but you need something. What if the internet goes down? What is your process to check in with each other, right? That's essential to have that. That's a part of your plan. And then training on how to respond collectively to a crisis. So, for example, I'm not throwing shade at any of us, right? But if someone ran in here and started shooting, there would be chaos because we don't know what to do. So we have to practice scenarios so that we train ourselves on what to do when these events happen. And you can't say that it would never happen. We don't want it to happen, but you can't say it would never happen, right? There's mass shootings every day in this society, right? Isn't that right? So we have to be prepared for that. and have a plan so that every one of us in here knows, okay, if this happens, this is my role. If this happens, this is your role. We all have an idea, and you're talking about that and you're practicing it. Does that make sense? All right, we'll go through it even more. But you have one of the things we do, and I'm going to say we created this, right, is we have what's called a strike team, right? And you can decide if you think the strike team is appropriate for the actions and the work that you do. But I feel like we live in a society where it's like Kwame Ture said, morality is a great tool when your enemy has a conscience. The problem is America doesn't have a conscience, right? So I'm not confused about that. So to me, a strike team, all the trainings I do, I always tell people it's essential that you organize one. And what a strike team is that you have conflict de-escalators. You have people who their job is to talk people down. And that's very important. But you also have people who their job is when someone pulls out a weapon, when someone attacks somebody, they take that person down so that they can't commit any further harm. And that requires training and practice, right? You are not going to do it just because you think you're going to do it. I'm telling you, I've seen more than enough people, oh, I can do this, and then something happens, they froze, because that's the natural reaction. You don't know what to do, right? I'm not going to freeze. I know he's not going to freeze because we've experienced this with each other, but only because we've practiced. We've done it over and over again. And so we know what to do. I already know, when I do this with Tighearnan, I already know where Tighearnan is. I don't have to ask, where's Tighearnan? I already know. And he knows where I'm going to be because we practice this. That's what we need to do. Does that make sense? We know this stuff. All right. So have your own language, right? That the enemies cannot understand. When we did the Beyond Burns tour, these people were monitoring our radios, right? We found out they were listening to us. And they were saying things on Facebook like, when they come here, we got a reception for them. So we created a language, right? Just, it doesn't have to be elaborate, just some key words that you can use. When we did that for the ROP center that they had in Cottage Grove, they came up with a wonderful, like if someone came in there, they had the pantry there and all of that work that they are doing. And what was decided is that if someone comes in there, they would, over the loudspeakers, say the name of the ROP founder. And all the ROP people know that she has made her physical transition, but the bad actor doesn't know that, doesn't even know who she is. So everybody would know, okay, that's crisis. I know what I need to do that. In that instance, on the tour, I told them, well, in Ghana, we have the term Batui Wawa, which means crazy white person. All right, that's an Akan term. So what we did is when we were in Medford, the white supremacists, they marched in a row, like 20 of them. And I got on the radio, they were looking, I'm looking at them, I'm staring at them, they're staring at me. They got on all this insignia. I had on a Black Lives Matter shirt. and I said in the radio, I said, Batui Wawa, and everybody knew. Okay, they're here. They didn't know it, they thought, oh, this black man's crazy. But that's a organizational weapon. Does that make sense? Yeah. So develop that. It can be anything. And then identifying safe collective locations, right? Like if something happened here, I hate to use these negative examples, but we gotta deal with it. Someone came in here and started shooting. We should have a place to go where everybody knows if you show up there, if you're not there in 30 minutes, we know we need to figure out how to find you and find out if you're okay. We should always have that. You should have that with your families. I do. You should have that. Like, where is the safe location? Ours is this McDonald's on Florin Road in Sacramento. We'll show up at the McDonald's. We don't even eat in McDonald's, but if something goes down at my house, we're going to McDonald's. That's our safe place. And if someone is not there, then we know that something went wrong. Does that make sense, you all? Yeah. And I didn't create this. Like, these protocols came from the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC. Y'all know about them? Okay, I was mentored by SNCC people. And I know, y'all know Kwame Ture, he was Stokely Carmichael. He was my mentor. I lived with him in his house in Guinea. And he told me that when Goodman, Swarner, and Cheney were killed in Mississippi in 1964, Andrew Goodman, James Cheney, Michael Swarner, they were killed by the sheriffs and the Ku Klux Klan, same thing. Same thing in 1964, same thing in 2025. Okay, when that happened, they knew that those 3 civil rights workers were dead. The national media at that time was saying it was a hoax, that they were in New York partying. Go back and look at the archives. Don't take my word for it. They were saying them boys ain't missing. They're playing around. They're out with some girls. That's what they were saying in the national media. The SNCC people knew they were dead because the environment was so dangerous that when you were supposed to be somewhere at 2:15 and it was 2:16, they knew something serious had happened to you. So that's where these protocols come from, right? One time I was taking Kwame to speak. He had spoke at Sacramento State, and I was driving him to Sonoma State. So if you know Northern California, you have to drive through Napa, and it's windy road, beautiful country, but windy roads, 35 mile an hour max. So I'm driving, we're not gonna make it on time. So Kwame says to me, do you mind if I drive? And I'm like, well, you think you could do better? Yeah, sure. So we stop, he gets in the driver's seat, he's hitting those 40 mile an hour curves at 70 miles an hour, right? And we got there. When we got there, the 3 of us with him got out. And when I put my heart back in place, I asked him, how did you drive like that on those roads? And he said, when they went to Mississippi and Alabama, as soon as they got there, the locals said, boy, let me show you how to drive. Because every night the Klan was chasing them, right? Now that's a high level organization. I don't know if we need that today, but the basic protocols are good, identifying collective locations, right? And then your resources, you have to decide what you need. I'm not telling you don't go and tell somebody, he told us have weapons. He didn't tell you no such thing. You have to decide what tools you need, right? I know what tools I need, okay? You got to decide what tools you need, whatever is best you think is appropriate for you to feel a sense of security, then have that, right? And if you need training, get training. And there are people that'll train you. This is what we do, right? Because I'm not going to speak for Tighearnan, although I know Tighearnan agrees. Like, my politics are revolutionary, y'all. So what that means, we talked about principles. What that means is that I don't just tell you this stuff and then disappear. If you're like serious about it and you're like, I want to know how to do this, I want to know how to do that, I'll come back up here and help train you to do it. That's what we do. You can't refute that because I'm here right now, okay? Well, so this is what we do. So if you want to know how to do that, this is not just talking and then that's it. If you want to do it, we can help you do it.
I'm not as entertaining, but I live closer.
Yeah, it's just me. The time allocated practice, you got to practice stuff. And we're going to do a little practicing in here. You got to practice. If you don't practice, you won't do it when the time comes. You think you will, but you won't. So practice is always good, right? So I'm just going to go through them real quick. Check-in procedure. Develop mechanisms to get in touch quickly. You decide what that is, right? Establish protocols, triggers. Like, what needs to happen for you to institute your phone tree, if that's what you decide to do? Like, what is the event that happens? You have to establish that within your circles. Does that make sense? So you do that. And then establish, like we said, language codes that you can use so you don't have to be compromised. And ensure everyone is trained in how to engage in your communication techniques. Like, have formal trainings. Like, this is how we use, if you're using Signal, this is how we use it. Whatever else you decide to use. If you use the drum, right? This is how we use it. Like, have training on that so everybody knows how to do it. And then have collective practice of scenarios, which we're gonna do. And then safe houses, have that. How do you get there safely? Have maps for how to get there, right? It sounds like a lot of work, but there's an old African proverb, you all. the more you sweat now, the less you'll bleed later. The more you sweat now, the less you'll bleed later. That's what this is all about. You spend a little time on this, it makes things a lot better when something happens, right? So process to collective to confirm everyone's whereabouts. So say you get somewhere and there's 10 of you, 8 of you get there, 2 of them you are not there. What happens next? How do you go about finding them, right? You call 911? Well, maybe you do, but I'm saying you should have your own process for that. What if 911 is not even available? Even for the sake of argument that that's something you could do productively, what if that's not an option? What do? What if everything breaks down? How do you find each other? There are ways to answer that question, but you have to think it through and practice it, right? So that's what I'm saying. So establish a process when people are in peril, right? That's what I just say. Strike team prepared to respond, and training practice on how to use security tools if you decide to have any. Think about your living situations. How many of you think about safety protocols in your living situation? Right? Good. Have protocols there. I'm gonna tell you right now, if you come to my house, there's traps. I'm gonna tell you right now. If you're not supposed to be there, you're gonna have a bad day. Okay, there's traps. And there should be, right? Because I get hate mail all the time. I don't know what these people are gonna do. They got a history, right? So if they come to my house, they're gonna regret it, right? So you figure out what that looks like to you, your living situation. And then your vehicles. Every time I get in my vehicle, I check around it. I check the back seat, I check underneath, I check to make sure nobody's fumbled with my vehicle, right? That happened to ROP people here before. People mess with people's brake lines. So I'm not making this stuff up, it's real. So you're in these communities and you're doing this work and people are upset with you, these protocols can help you stay safe. You may not see it today because it's not happening, but if it happens, you gotta be prepared. And that's what this is all about, right? Self-defense. Some of you may not believe in self-defense, and that's fine. I believe in self-defense, okay? Because I know like years ago during Occupy, we had a workshop and we went around and we were doing self-defense training. And someone in the room said, well, I don't believe in any form of violence. And I said, well, that's cool, but this is for the people who want to learn how to defend themselves. If you don't want to, you can, sunshine outside, do your thing. So they didn't want to do that. They wanted to preach about how self-defense was bad. And I said, well, nothing you say is going to change my mind, because if I did not know how to defend myself, you would be talking to an empty chair right now, because there were several attempts to end my life for various reasons, right? So I can't process what you're saying. You're talking to me out of your life experience, not mine, right? So you can't tell me how to live my life. Like, there are many people who are not safe in this society, right? It's just a fact. So I would say if you're a trans person, LGBTQ, if you're a colonized person, if you're a woman, self-defense should be a proper priority for you, right? How many of you you identify as women, you walk to your car at night and you're concerned, right? That's a concern for you, right? Am I making that up? Right, that's a real thing. So these people talking about you don't need to know how they don't have to worry about that, right? I don't worry about it. When I walk to my car at night, I halfway hope somebody bothers me, because that's just what I'm made in America, right? It's just what happened. So, but having that and training is required, and practicing the components of your plan collectively, that's essential. So your checklist there is developing a plan and its components, identifying the tools needed to carry out your plan, practicing the components of the plan to ensure everyone knows their roles, very important, and it's comfortable to carry out the roles. And then practicing every element of your plan, from communication to utilizing tools to everything that you need to do. right? And then that's that. So any questions on the security plan? Yes.
So the kind of planning you're talking about, is that for the security team?
No.
Or for everybody?
No, what I'm saying is that there's two things that every group and organization should have. One is a political education process. That's a separate workshop. Love to do that one. The second thing is a security plan. I think you should have one for your house, for your loved ones, for your organization. You should have one for every element of life that you participate in. And it doesn't take long to develop it. And it really doesn't even take long to learn it and implement it. But I'm saying it should be for every element of your life. If you're doing this kind of work, it's essential. You need to have it.
Well, what about here now with us?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not aware of a security plan for this event.
Well, that's because you're not on the security team. We in this setting, we have a plan. We meet.
Okay.
We met for months planning this weekend. That's what we do.
So you're taking care of it?
Yeah, we've come here before today to scope out this facility, right? Yep. This is what we've been doing this for years. We have a plan. That's the point. And so there's no reason for you to know this unless you're part of this team. But whatever you are doing, have that plan in place. Does that make sense?
Kind of.
I mean, a security team for an event, march, rally, that type of thing is a very specific security plan.
Right.
What he's talking about is when we think about self-defense, the highest form of self-defense for a community is a strong community.
Right.
So these safety plans can be implemented everywhere, but this is a very specific detail of security, or security detail.
All right. So maybe another element is what we're going to spend for the remaining time we have, which is specific to conflict de-escalation, which is an element of security, right? But what we just got through talking about is really how you should organize your daily life, right? Not just when you're coming to events, but your daily life, right? Because if you do this work, you will develop, especially if you live in rural communities, you'll develop a profile. People will know who you are, right? And that puts you in danger. So that's what we've just got through talking about, is these things are designed to help keep you safe in your day-to-day life. You could be going to the grocery store and you're in danger because people know who you are and they don't agree with the work you're doing. That's what this is about. Make sense? Okay. All right. So let's talk about conflict de-escalation. Now, again, remember, conflict de-escalation is about a threat, mitigating the threat, helping the people who are creating the threat understand that we're a community. That's what conflict de-escalation is. It's not beating up people. It's not the police. It's not any of that. None of this is that. Okay, that's not what we want to do. We want to build community with people. Sometimes we can't do that, but to the extent that we can, we want to try to do it. So how many of you organize protests of any kind? Okay, a good number of you, right? So this will be helpful to you because that's what this is designed to do. So my crude design there, the point of that is if you have a march, if that's a march or if that's an event room like this, you want to make sure you have a few things. At a bare minimum, try to have 2 conflict de-escalators for every 50 people that attend your event. I know it's hard to get that because it's always a struggle getting people to actually do the work. You got all kinds of, how many of you have been in the meetings where everybody has ideas about what needs to happen? They got all kinds of ideas. They take up all the space. Well, what we need to do is do this. And then when you get to the part, so who's going to do this? Crickets, right? Every time. So I know how hard it is to get people to do the work. So the ratio of 2 per 50, that's a struggle. But if you can do that, that's good. Most of the time, you're just going to be able to do the best that you can do, right? But the ideal goal is at least 2 for every 50, 2 people. And then arrive at the location early, right? Don't get there. Now, y'all, I don't know you, but I know somebody needs to hear this, right? You got an event at 1 o'clock and you get there at 1:30. That's not acceptable. You are putting everyone at risk by doing that. Plus, you're disrespecting everyone, right? Now, I think you can tell by now, like, I'm an honest person. So we did a pro-immigration event in Sacramento a couple of weeks ago, and we said we would be there at 7 a.m., right? Now, I don't want to wake up at 7 a.m. no more than you do. But if that's what we collectively decided, you damn well know I'm going to be there at 7 a.m. And if I'm not, you better call the morgue or the hospital, right? So I'm there at 7 a.m. Nobody else was there, right? They come in at 7:30, 8:30. You know, one person came at 10. And when we had the debrief, I lit them up, not in a humanistic way. I'm like, if we say 7, we should be there at 7. If 7 is too early, we should have had a discussion about that. But you shouldn't just individually say, I'm just not going to show up. And I told them, what if the Proud Boys had come here at 7? I would have been killed, and you wouldn't have been able to have this event. And they agreed, because that's principle, right? That's correct. So you got to have that, right? Make sure that you arrive early. We always arrive early. We were here early this morning. We do that because we want to make sure everything's cool. There's nobody here that's not supposed to be here. That's our plan. We get here early, way before most of you got here. We were here before 7 o'clock, just to be here and check out what was happening. We've done some of the RLP caucuses, we've gotten there at 5:30 in the morning because we had reason to believe somebody might be there. So early bird does get the worm, right? You ain't getting there before I get there. I'm getting there first. I'm gonna see you before you see me, right? Because that's just the best security measure. So get there early. Don't come late. That's irresponsible. Get there early. And then if inside, search the facility. Like we went through here today. I looked under all these chairs. You might think, well, he's crazy for doing that. Okay, maybe I am, but the responsibility is to mitigate the risk of danger. And that's why I'm here. So I'm gonna do that every time. I'm gonna make sure I don't see anything that's suspect, right? And it's not something like I don't have to stand out here. You don't have to do that. I don't stand out here and say, hey, I checked under every chair when you go in there. That's not important that you know that. I'm just telling you that now because we're talking about it. But the point is that you want to make sure that you get to your place early enough to make sure everything's cool. And if you get there late, you can't do that. You get there after all the people come, you can't do that, right? So if outside, marching or organizing, whatever, make sure you utilize things, and some of you, I'm sure you know this, like vehicles. Vehicles are very good tools in a march to keep people from having direct access. Having vehicles in front and back is really good to have that. And having necessary medical supplies and whatever else you think is appropriate in those vehicles, that's always good to do that, right? To have that. And then strategically station people, as you see by the stars, give people quadrant areas. Yes.
Do you have any suggestions for scenarios where vehicles are not possible to be used for a march or?
Well, yeah, if you can't use them, you can't use them. But if you can, it's a good thing to do, right? And we'll talk about what it would look like, if you don't have access to that kind of resource, right? But make sure you have people have quadrants. Like, for example, you have 2 people in that corner, 2 people in that corner, 2 people in this corner, 2 people in this corner, right? And you have that, and that's your assignment. Your people in those areas, that's their assignment. There are people that have been here since this morning on the corners. You saw them when you drove in. That was their assignment. They don't say, well, I've been here 30 minutes. I want to go get an ice cream cone. I'll be back in 2. No, that's your assignment. You stay there and you keep watch, right? That's why you're here. So we want to have people who can do that and be consistent with it. That's very important. The worst feeling in the world is when you see something bubbling up to happen and you look and the people that are supposed to be there are not there. That is the worst feeling on earth. And I've had it too many times. I don't want to see you have that happen, right? So, and then conflict de-escalation techniques, right? You see the picture up there? This is during the pandemic period. The young woman, I believe, is a medical worker, and the man there is protesting wearing masks, right? All the, like, people, this is a tirade. I'm gonna just tell you honestly. Like, all right, so, I love my sister. She passed away last month, right? And just suddenly, like, called her, she didn't answer, had the people go in her apartment, and she had become deceased in the apartment, still grieving her loss. But one thing about Felicia that killed me is, like, she was one of those people, right? I ain't getting no shots for no COVID. I'm not doing that. And I'm like, this is a woman that was 65 years old. Like, I'm a health nut. I haven't eaten meat for 40 years. I've never smoked and drank in my entire life. I don't get high. I exercise every day. That's my life, right? I'm not saying it has to be your life. That's my life, right? That's why I look so good. But she did all those things every day. So now all of a sudden she's lecturing me on health. And I told her, I know I'm not going to sit here and listen to you lecture me. I just watched you eat some pork. I'm not listening to you talk to me about no health. Are you crazy? I just saw you drink an entire bottle of Alizé. What is that, champagne? I don't even know what it is. I know nothing about liquor. All right. But she does. And she, so I'm like, you are not lecturing me. Why would you pick that to be the hill that you die on? You don't know anything about health. You know nothing about science. Science to her was, I don't know what it was. But that's the thing this is what this guy was. I don't know why people picked all the issues in the world. That's the one they picked. Okay. So he's doing that. Now, I want you to observe her demeanor. What do you observe about her demeanor?
Straight looking at him.
Right.
With her arms out.
Right. All right. Keep that in mind because we're going to talk it through. So, de-escalation team must keep their eyes on the people. Your conflict de-escalators, your security people, strike team, whatever you have, they are not listening to the presentations. You didn't see us coming in here clapping. The presentations are great, but that's not why we're here, right? We are paying attention to what's going on. So when you have people doing that, you got to be getting people who are disciplined enough to do that. If they're not, you got to be honest. Like, we love you. Maybe you're better with the food or the coffee. That's not for you, right? You're not doing any favors by putting somebody in a position that they're not prepared to be in and creating a unsafe potential, right? So you got to have people who are able to do that and willing to do it, right? You got to do that. And then you have to have alternatives if needed to give people rest. So that's always a struggle because we never have enough people. But if you have enough people, if you can give people shifts, that's good because people get tired, genuinely. And they need to be able to take breaks. So if that's a potential you have, that's great. Stay alert for agitated behaviors, and you have to be proactive. What does that mean? When there's agitated behaviors, you have to be proactive. What does that mean?
Don't wait for something worse to happen.
Right, you gotta act immediately. Now I'm gonna tell you 99.9% of disruption at events like this is heckling, verbal heckling. Right? That's what happens. But if you don't act on it, it can easily escalate into something else. So you got to be prepared to move quickly. Like when we did the Beyond Burns tour, everywhere we went, people would get up, well, the tyranny, the Second Amendment, we're fighting for tyranny, and you're a slave. That's what one guy said to me, well, you're a slave. And I'm like, you are too. You're just not smart enough to know it, but that's okay. Yeah, I'm a slave. I'm a rebellious slave, the kind that would slit your throat. That's what I told him. Like, so whatever you want to do, you can do. But that's the thing is that, they were getting up doing that. So we were constantly alert to that. Now, there's freedom of speech. People say whatever they want to say. But you have to develop a process so that at this point, when it crosses this line, we act. How do you know that? You have to discuss that with each other. So everybody's on the same page. Right? Everybody knows. This one person isn't thinking, well, that person has a "Don't Tread on Me" shirt. He needs to be killed. And the next person is thinking, oh, that's his freedom. You got to be on the same page. And it's got to be the right page, right? don't tread on me is a disgusting message, but we don't care what people, we know people believe, I'd rather you have it on and it's clear that's what you believe. I'd rather you hate that. So I'm not concerned about you having that shirt on, but we're going to watch you to see what you do, right? So you just have to have all that worked out. And then when encountering agitated persons, engage them immediately, like I just said. Now, we had a good discussion about this yesterday, and you said she's looking directly at them. And then yesterday, Tighearnan made a great point that, in many cultures, it's considered rude to look at people directly in the eyes. So you have to use your ability to figure out what makes sense in the moment, right? But one thing I want to make you aware of is a lot of people who agitate, they're doing that. Why do you think they're doing that? Why would someone come in an event like this and be agitated?
Provoke you into doing something, get yourself in trouble.
Right, but what drove them to get out of bed this morning and come here and be disruptive?
Fear.
Their what? Fear and what else? Bullied? They were bullied? Yeah, exactly. So look around, like people are suffering in this society. Is that right? They're suffering and they don't feel like anybody's paying attention. And for the most part, they're right. That's true. Nobody is paying attention. So they see this and they don't see it centered on how they see themselves. So they want to come in and make an issue of that. It's not really that they're opposed, because everything that's being talked about in here is in their interests, right? It's to help them, but they don't see that yet. So that's why it's important for us to recognize what we started out with. They are not the enemy. So our conflict de-escalation has to be designed to bring them down, not destroy them, not dismiss them, not defeat them, but to keep them from disrupting and to invite them to participate, right? Invite them to participate, right? We told the story yesterday. When we were doing security for Walida, we were driving to Prineville. This was a number of years ago. It was myself, Tighearnan, and Walida and Marisha. And Tighearnan was driving, and we were driving to Prineville, and we got pulled over. Shock. We got pulled over, right? And trooper came to the window, and he's like, there no laws were broken, there was nothing wrong. And the way you know that is he didn't come and say, I need your license, you're speeding. He said, where are you going? Where are y'all going? And we didn't say anything. And I think maybe Tighearnan said something of going to Prineville. And he said, what's in Prineville? What are you going there? And I said, we're going there because there's an event. Why are there no black people in Oregon? And he said, well, why aren't there? Why aren't there any black people in Oregon? He said, Dave is the lacrosse teacher at the high school there. He's there. Why aren't there more? And I said, I got an idea. Why don't you go get Dave and you come to the event, right? Don't wear that badge and that uniform and that gun, but come on. The dude came to the event. He came to the event. So I'm saying we had a long conversation. So he was not the enemy, Does that make sense? Yeah. He's not the enemy. And I learned so much here. I'm like, so next time I told him, next time someone's on the freeway coming to your town, you might not want to pull them over, right? Just find a different way to deal with that. You've given me a lot to think about. Okay, well, that's why I exist. Okay, so there it is. And stand no closer than 4 feet to the person. So what I would critique about what she's doing, and she's probably not trained to do it, she's doing the best she can. But what about her arms? Why do you think that might be problematic? Yes.
You can't defend yourself properly.
You can't defend yourself. And then folded arms means you're closed off. You're not really interested in dealing with the person, right? That's the message you're sending. So both of those things are true. And then I also she's way too close, and he probably walked up on her, but way too close, right? You got to give them at least 4 feet to exercise themselves, right? And ensure that you provide them with an escape route. Like, don't box people in, right? So here's the process, and we'll get to this and close out. You want to make sure that you get up with them and you give them a message. Like in this example, we are happy you're here. We want you to be here, but you have to stop or you have to leave. And you want to say that repeatedly in a calm voice, looking in their direction. We're happy you're here. We want you to be here, but you have to stop or you have to leave. You have to do that if you have to say it 100 times. The majority of times, that will be enough to de-escalate people because you're accomplishing a couple of things. You're helping, they're seen, you're hearing them, you're acknowledging their humanity, and that's really what they came in there for in the first place, right? We had one, we blocked in Portland, the MAX train, and it was great. There was a white woman from the group Surge, blonde woman, had a Prius. There was nothing wrong with her car, but she parked it on the tracks. She had revealing clothes, and the police came and said, my car stopped, I don't know what to do. And meanwhile, a block up the street, we were setting up the barricades so the train couldn't get through. She should have gotten an academy where she did a wonderful job. And so we set it up, and then all the people sat down. And so when the train came there, it stopped. And we had rides for people, because we weren't trying to disrupt people's lives. We were trying to get them to understand the issue, which I think was the treatment of people incarcerated, if I remember correctly. And so the one guy got out, he was all agitated. And I said, well, we got a ride for you. We got sandwiches for you. And that took him off guard because he wasn't prepared. And he said, I got to get to work. No, we got a ride for you. We'll give you a ride, sandwich, drink. He's like, I don't want to go to work anyway. So a lot of times it's not that. It's like people are so disrespected in this society, right? That's where they just feel like they have to express that. And they can't get to the people who are causing the problem, so they come to us, right? Because there's only two spaces, I would argue, in the society where people are just generally, regardless of who they are, going to be welcome. And that's in churches, because they want your money, and social justice circles, right? You can come in social justice circles and people welcome you, no matter what your situation is. So that's why that's going to happen. All right. So I talked about the strike team. I don't need to talk about that anymore. Critical points are you have to know symbols, right? These white supremacist symbols, all of them are not white. The ones on the bottom are revolutionary organizations, including my own. But the three across the top are white supremacist symbols. And I do workshops on that as well. You need to know them. They're everywhere. I've seen them in this town. But if you don't know what they look like, you don't know what it is. Like how many of you heard, if I said 1351, what does that mean? 1351. What's that mean? You know what it means?
I could say that. I don't know if you want to hear it.
Try it.
Okay. We must secure the future of the white race, and the 51 representing, shit, I'm blanking on this part, but, actually, I think that's 1488. That's different.
Yeah. No, you're on the right track, though. You're on the right track. And thank you for that. What it means is that African people are 13% of the population.
Right.
Yeah. But we commit 51% of the crime. Is that true? Do we commit 51%? Like, there are states like Alaska where there aren't even any African people there. Alaska's the highest crime rate state in the country, right? So that should tell you that's a lie. What it is true is that we are arrested and convicted 51% of the time. I don't disagree with that. Because we're more, like this young white activist said something that was very profound. They said, I grew up in the suburbs. And in our suburbs, we had as many guns, we had as many drugs. The police just weren't focused on us. And that's absolutely true. Where I grew up, the police were everywhere, all the time. So that's what that means. Yeah, we're arrested and convicted. No argument there. But that doesn't mean we're guilty. We're not committing. In fact, each quote unquote racial group generally commits crime consistent with the percentage they occupy in the society. That's a fact across the board. There are all these myths out there, black on black crime. There's no such thing. Every group kills each other, okay? Because you're socially around people that look like you primarily in this society. So African people kill each other 91% of the times. Asians kill each other 86% of the times. European white people kill each other 87% of the time. Indigenous Latino kill each other 89% of the time. The difference is negligible, you all. There's no such thing as black on black crime. That's nothing. That's just another talking point to turn white people against us. That's all it is. And I know you know people who believe that. Maybe some of you believe some of that. I don't know. But that's what that is. So know the symbols. And then I'll just, I'll go back here and we'll stop here. I want to go back to her picture. So let's do a little practice, because you got to practice this stuff. And we'll close out with the practice. So what I need is someone who agrees to be an protagonist, a disruptor. Anybody, don't be shy. Somebody, thank you. All right, we got a protagonist. So we need 2 people for here and 2 people for over here to be conflict de-escalators. We got a couple of people, let's do it. Thank you. All right, we got 2 over there, we need 1 more over here. Thank you, all right. So remember, 4 feet, give them 4 feet, and that's your quadrant, and that's your quadrant, right? So feel free to move around wherever, what's your name?
Marcy.
Marcy, wherever Marcy is when the disruption behavior starts, whichever quadrant is closer, you are the ones who engage. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Now, if Marcy is not in your quadrant, do you engage also?
No.
No, why not?
Somebody else might disrupt over there.
Absolutely. Did everybody understand that? Keep watching. Keep watching if it's not you. Trust that your colleagues will handle it, right? And then other people will get up and help them too. But keep watching, because it could be a distraction, right? Malcolm X was assassinated. You don't know how Malcolm X was assassinated? Somebody, get your hand out of my pocket. Everybody looked at that. They didn't even see the FBI informants that shot him, right? Because, that's who did it. We have a saying, the Nation of Islam might have pulled the trigger, but the FBI bought the bullets. That's our saying. All right, so that's important to know that. And then 4 feet, remember to figure out what you're going to say, just for the sake of time. Just say, we're glad you're here. Please stop or please leave. You got to say it repeatedly, and you got to be firm but open with it. Make sense? Any questions? Any questions? Got it? All right, Marcy, you're running the show.
There you go. All right. What's going on? You've got some kind of socialist event going on? What is this? Yo, Tucker Carlson told me all about y'all. I don't get this. Is this what America is turning into? What kind of woke bullshit is this? I don't fucking get it.
Glad you're here.
I hope all of you, everybody on Rumble right now, make sure you get the faces on IDs right now. We're gonna dodge everybody on here. Don't even worry about it. No, we got them right here. We're gonna get the plates later. Don't even worry about it. Who we got over here? Oh, I can't believe it's a man. We're letting everybody in, huh? Oh, this is America, everybody. Understand, this is America in a nutshell.
Can you give an Oscar this year?
I can't believe it.
Yeah. You guys did good.
America. What are we turning into?
All right, Marcy got practice with that. Thank you. Very good. Very good. Very good. All right, y'all can take your seats. We're just going to spend the last few minutes just talking it through. Now, first, all of y'all did very well, right? I want you to feel good. But it's awkward, isn't it?
Yes.
It's awkward. Why is it awkward?
Confrontation is awkward.
Confrontation is awkward. So you have to get comfortable with the uncomfortableness of it, right? That's what you have to do. Now, I'm old and I've had a lot of conflict in life. So I'm very comfortable with conflict, but I had to come to this point, right? So like, if I was doing it, I would be like, what's your name? You're right. Like, let's have a conversation. You want something to drink? I know how to say things that disrupt it, but it comes from practice. That's all. I'm not any better at it than you. It's just, I've done it a lot more. So that's why the practice is so important. You all did great, but you have to practice it. That's what, anything in life that you don't feel comfortable with is going to be awkward. You got to practice this. And the more you practice it, the better you'll get. It is such a wonderful skill because it allows you to do a couple things. Number one, to mitigate problems, but also it allows you to talk to people who are not used to talking about the issues that we want to talk about. And we want that, right? Like I have a saying, I spend 95% of my life around people I don't agree with. It's true. I'm excited about that. I don't want to talk to people that already do the same politics I do. I don't want to do that. I want to talk to new people and have discussions and engage people. Like the guy I told you I talked to the other day, and he's like, well, you know, black people commit all the crime. And I'm like, what crime? Tell me about what crime it is. And he's like, well, rape. I said, well, we know that's a lie because the system of supporting women identifying people when they're assaulted is so brutal that most of them don't even report it. So if they don't report it, how can you say who the most people are? I mean, like, you don't know that. You don't know anything. So we had a good conversation. I love that. I live for that. I don't want to talk to people that already agree. You know, we go out and try to recruit people that are new to this, right? That are doing this. So it allows you to do that. So that's the beauty of it. Yes.
How do you keep from saying to a person, you voted for a man who's a rapist?
So I'm going to give you an answer. It's probably not going to be the answer you're looking for, but we got to learn. You got to think in terms of, can you refute what I'm going to say, not whether you like it or not. That's the problem now, right? So I'm going to say this. Malcolm X said, I'm not a student of politics. I'm not a politician. I'm neither a Democrat nor a Republican nor an American, and got sense enough to know it. That's me, right? So I get it. Like, I don't have any use for Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, or any of those bottom shoe scum. But I don't have any use for Barack Obama and Bill Clinton or any of them either. I don't have any use for any of them. I don't think any billionaires and millionaires are going to solve our problems. So I think what I say to those people, and I encounter them all the time, is that, look, I work for a labor union, and I come in contact with folks like that all the time. And they tell me, I support Donald Trump. I'm like, I don't care. I don't care. But what I can tell you is that you're telling me, because they don't want to support the union because they feel like the union is for Democratic Party. That's what they think. So I tell them, I'm not for the Democratic Party either. I agree with you. I'm not for either one of them. But we're talking about how you can get wage increases to support your family, how you can get affordable, quality health care. So you're telling me you're going to throw all that away, right, over an ego thing. Well, no, I'm not saying that. Okay, so let's talk about that. I mean, we can talk about what we don't agree with, but we would spend the next 3 hours of me telling you how wrong you are about life, and I don't want to do that. Okay, so let's talk about what we can agree on. That's what I tell them. Like, I don't care about you. Of course you support Donald Trump. I'm not surprised by that. You know, I tell my wife every day, like, she's like, oh, I want, you know, that our plan is to move to Ghana when I retire in a year and a half. And I've been there many times. And I took her there last year, and she had all these apprehensions because, you know, this country's so racist. They tell all these lies about Africa. She had all these apprehensions. Finally got her to go, and she loved it. I couldn't get her to leave. Like, I'm like, we were at a New Year's Eve party in Accra, Ghana, on the beach, fireworks, having the best time of her life. And we had a plane to catch at 6 a.m. I'm like, we got to go. So we can catch the next plane, you know. And then she's telling me, I'm in Africa. You can't be bothering me right now. I'm like, okay, I done created a monster. But that's okay, though. You know, it's like she says all the time, now she's like, when are we moving together? Let's get our stuff together so we can leave. And she's like, I hate Trump. I wish something would happen to him. I'm like, the one behind him is worse. Yeah. You know? So it's a system. It's a system. That's what it is. And I say that whoever's president, they got to uphold these systems. So we shouldn't be, I know it's hard, and I appreciate you being honest about it. But what I'm saying to you all is we should not be looking at these people like they're the enemy. If you let them talk, ask them open-ended questions. And the more they talk, the more you realize, I don't need to argue with this person. I got to figure out how to help them understand something. Like, this stuff is wild what they're talking about. So they really don't know. They're afraid. You know, I've spent my whole life with most of the people in the society being afraid of me when I come towards them, right? So I'm comfortable with that. Like, I'm not offended by it anymore. I expect it, right? When I come in a town like this, it's all eyes. I went in a cowboy bar Thursday night, to eat dinner. And I mean, they practically stopped the music up in there. And I said, how y'all doing? Everybody all right in here? And they, yo, we're fine. I'm like, good, okay. And they were, I like to mess with things, you know. So they had a room there, a bar, and they were playing music. And they played the Cupid's Shuffle, right? And nobody does that better than me. So I went out there and did it. And all these people, all the women, everybody came and danced. And then I went and ate my food. And they're like, do you want to? No, I just wanted to, you know, break the barrier. Right? We're all people. We all had a good fun, right? I'm no threat to you. And even if I was, there wouldn't be much you could do about it. So let's just have a good time, right? Let's enjoy each other's company, right? So this is the thing, is like, we gotta, this is what the ruling classes want. They want us to see each other. And I'm not saying that you have to put up with their nonsense, because there's a lot of that. But I'm saying, as a movement, we gotta figure out how we can talk to these people. We got to do that. We got to figure out how we can talk to these people, because there is a way to do it. You cannot convince me that there isn't a way. We don't know right now today, but we got to figure that out. We do. And I'll just close with this quick one that I told them yesterday when we were doing that Beyond Burns tour. This is an example. We were doing that Beyond Burns tour. We were at this town. These people had all these guns. They were, you know, threatening to use them. And we were there. There were 4 of us. Right? We were there and we were committed to ain't nobody getting harmed on our watch. Were we afraid? Of course. I mean, we had a discussion and it was so tense, you could cut it, right? And I think you asked me, how are you doing? I'm like, I mean, it's terrifying. I said, but it's not going to stop me from doing what we came here to do. You know, they're going to have to deal with some if they, you know, we're not going out like that. So it was that kind of environment, y'all. We are not exaggerating. And there was this kid that kept following me around. He was like 15, 16. And he had a tablet. I saw it said Oath Keepers or 3%ers on it, one of the two. Right. So I'm like, why is this kid I couldn't get rid of him. He's like, you're so cool. I'm like, you don't even know me, man. I am cool, but you don't know that yet. So, so I thought, it's like, well, what's your deal? What's up with you? This kid, his parents were killed in a car crash. I can't remember if it was Oath Keepers, 3%er, adopted him and raised him. This kid didn't believe any of that ideology. So I'm thinking there needs to be people that are talking to this kid so that the Oath Keepers and the 3%ers don't get him. Does that make sense? Yeah. Because he's going to grow up and be one of these Trump people you're talking about, right? Because we aren't talking to them. That's what we need to do.
You're teaching with your objectivity.
Right. Yeah. That's right. Like when I talk to a lot of gangbangers, and I tell them all the time, right? I don't have any problem relating to them. Bloods and Crips, I tell them all the time. I told them the other day. I said, y'all, if you go down the street like I know you have and shoot at some people, that's a drive-by. You'll go to prison. But if you put on a U.S. military uniform and drop bombs on people, that's a flyby. You'll get a medal. They understood that. You might not understand it, but they understood that. I'm like, so that's the contradiction y'all got to deal with, right? So I'm talking to you about that, right? Don't change one criminal uniform for another one, okay? Don't wear no criminal uniform, right? So let's not, just think about that. They're not our enemies, and we got to figure out a way to talk to them. Is it easy? No, it's not. But if we don't figure that out, we're going to have even bigger problems, right? Does that make sense, you all? Yeah. All right, I think we're out of time, but thank you all. Thank you. Appreciate you. Yeah. And be here for Tighearnans at 3. It's going to be great.